start, let me just remind you also that after the lecture and Q&A, of course, you're all invited to the premises of the zone, which is downstairs, where we will also be able to discuss about the lecture and other important issues, and also be part of a networking event. And before the start of the lecture itself, I would like to welcome and kindly ask our rector and host for today, Professor Dr. to say a few opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Professor Lessem. We're very glad that you came today with a very actual topic. Since the University of Maribor is also on the way to transform, it is a very good opportunity for us and kind of stimulus. We are quite aware that the whole society has to transform to get to a more sustainable way of development. Although sustainability is in our mouth for quite some decades already, there are just rare cases where it has also been effective or effectively implemented. And obviously, a green economy is possible. It's just that we often do not want to change the patterns. We simply are not really stimulated or motivated for a change. Probably because we don't know what's ahead. So it is very important to enlight this future, a different future where sustainability will become our way of living. University of Maribor is going this way. We also are quite aware of the necessity of such changes. We do have some measures already implemented that are slowly moving our attention and also our energy, our focus to this green future. So again, I'm very glad that we will have this opportunity to hear this lesson today, and I'll be happy to forward the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a great privilege to be here, and I have to say it's music to my ears to hear about the university, which sees itself as a catalyst for the transformation of society. As far as we are concerned, there's no other place that a university should be. If I think back to my undergraduate years in Zimbabwe, this is where I come from, just by way of background. My parents are Russian and Austrian, but I was born in Africa. I live in the UK. Our offices of Transform are Geneva. I was educated in America. So as you can see, I come from many different parts of the world. And when I was actually doing my undergraduate studies, and I think back now and I think to myself, wouldn't that have been exciting if the rector of the university had stood up on the first day and said, Ronnie, or Samanyanga is my African name. Samanyanga means elephant. I have the memory of an elephant. Samanyanga, you have come to join our community, and the reason you're here is to help transform our society. Wow. If only. Okay. I now carry that memory, and every day of my life when I wake up in the morning, I say, what am I going to do about transforming our society? And because I come from, not geographically or culturally, but vocationally from two worlds, I come from a business family, and I've been dedicated to universities. My life is about linking those two worlds together and transforming particular societies in the process. Because I come from a very small society called Zimbabwe. And when I went to university, the studies that I actually took part in had absolutely nothing to do with the environment. They weren't about me. They weren't about Africa. They were someplace out there called United Kingdom. wasn't Slovenia. It wasn't Samanyanga. It was someplace else. And we have to start from where we are. So let me begin from where we are here now. And I guess here we are is somewhere in the north. But from people I've been talking to in the 2 days I've been spending in Slovenia, you're not really from the north. You are kind of from the north, but you also have a soul force in the south and in the east, and we can't ignore the west. The west won't ignore us. Okay. So in a sense we have to find a place in the center to mediate between all these forces. Because you see, the world is split. I call it the split in the world's and in Europe's psyche. The split between the north and the west, and the south and the east. In one sense, you could say it's the split between nature and community, and culture and spirituality on the one hand, and economics and politics, science and technology. I would say this is a catastrophic split. Because we as human beings come from culture and we come from nature. And yet our institutions come from politics and economics, science and technology, and all too often the two don't meet. So we can't become whole, we can't become who we are, we're torn apart. Now the same kind of split we can see in Europe today. If you put it in dramatic terms, the south and the east are being colonized by the north and the west. We all know about colonization, that's a history we share. I was a colonizer and colonized in Africa, and you've been colonized in your own past. And now we're seeing it again. We call it austerity. Austerity's never worked anywhere in the world. But nevertheless, there's a combination of, if you like, Anglo-Saxon and German economics, and they've come to tell Slovenia the way to go. And at the same time, they're in the mess themselves. Who are they to tell us? Okay. Enough complaining. We've got to go. The key, of course, is to find a position in the center. I can't sit there in the south or there in the east and say, hey, you guys in the north and the west, go away. They won't go away. I have to find a position in the center, and then I can begin to capitalize and mediate, and facilitate, and co-create. Because Europe's on fire. The world's on fire. So we want to burn? Or is there a way out? To put a few words to add to, if you like, the pictures, my partner Alexandrom Shiefferjem and I have devoted our lives to actually say, well, what makes different parts of the world be who they are? And in some shape or form, and these are massive generalizations, because every continent, every society has all the worlds within it. So the South is not just Africa or Latin America, it's also Southern Europe, and Slovenia has its own South. Southern is the humanistic, is the closeness to nature, it's about healthy communities. That's, if you like, the Southern. Our basic philosophy is you build from the ground up. You always have to return to your South, and your South is your identity, the South is your nature, the South is your community. That's always the place to start, but it's not the place to end. Because we need the East. We don't only need the East culturally and philosophically, but also, if you like, psychologically. Because the East is the intuitive side. The South is a place of feeling for those of us who studied Carl Jung, the great Carl Jung. Anybody know Carl Jung? I'm sure. Rudolf Stein is another one. Jung, Stein are great teachers of ours. Okay, so the feeling is the South, and then the intuition, the East, where we raise our consciousness. When we move east, then the South and the other need to interconnect. The East is the place of interdependence, or holism, from humanism to holism. So we know who we are, but we need to evolve. And those two steps, in a sense, come prior to that journey north, where we deal with concepts and systems and institutions. From my experience as an African, working a lot in the Middle East and certain parts of Europe, most societies have institutions which are not their own. That's why we have phenomena which some of us come across, which might be called corruption, friction, that kind of thing. It's because we haven't made our institutions our own. We've borrowed them from someplace else. They haven't emerged from our own grounds, which in a sense is not unlikely because it's not easy to evolve institutions from out of your own grounds and from relating yourself to others. But that's the way to go. And as good as academics in this room is the same process education. In Britain, our educators, our academics, are what I call latter-day colonizers. Because as you probably know, in Britain, we get students from all over the world, we tell them how to think, because we know. We don't recognize the fact that we happen to be British, and they happen to be African, or Caribbean, or Chinese. My academics in the UK say, the Chinese is easy, they just like to copy. So you just tell them and they're very good, they're very studious. Catastrophe. I learned so much from my Chinese students. They educate me because they have a tradition of philosophy. Okay, so concept building, institution building. A great African philosopher by the name of Ntonji said that if you don't develop your own theories, you don't develop your own institutions. So, universities are so important. Because if we don't develop our own theories, we don't develop our own institutions. And then we have to submit to austerity. And finally, the Western pragmatic, getting things done, making things happen. Our philosophy is, and I guess it's obvious to you, the West must follow the rest. If you think of this logic, it's obvious. The West follows the rest. This comes last. Look at the world, look what's happening. The rest has followed the West. Now, of course, we say it's all changed because you've got China and India. But you study the dynamics of the Chinese economy, it's got nothing to do with Taoist philosophy. They've adopted Western materialism. And now we sit at the doors of God, China, and say, Chinese. Which Chinese? Chinese spirit or Chinese technique? Okay, so this is the kind of integral logic, and at the center, and of course, you have to find your center. What is your religion in inverted commas? It may be formally your religion, your Catholic religion, or maybe informally, what I believe in, where my spirit lies, where my soul force is, and your very source of humanity. Because that, in a sense, becomes the centrifugal force for the integral economy. Every society on earth has to find its own centrifugal force. Not somebody else. And interesting enough, because I'm a great student of Adam Smith, the originator of economics as we know it, that's exactly what he did. There he was in Scotland as a professor of moral philosophy, part of the Protestant Reformation. And he wrote his two great works, The Wealth of Nations and The Theory of Moral Sentiments. The wealth of nations is how you create wealth. The moral sentiments was how I empathize with the other. That was the original basis for capitalism, which then got totally distorted over a period of time. Now, this is, if you like, this is big picture, and then I'll begin to unpack certain elements. This is a straight readout of what we saw before, but now applied to economics. What we're saying is, bye-bye capitalism and communism. You both had your day, you both made your contribution. I think Karl Marx was a great man, Adam Smith was a great man. But your time is gone, and anyway, people totally distorted and perverted what you originally came up with. They got it wrong. Okay. So now it's time for something else, and we're saying that something else should be born out of all worlds and be integral to who you are. So, as an extrapolation of nature and community, we have the economy of self-sufficiency. I mentioned to people in our interview earlier on that we feel a great pride that in our programs in Zimbabwe, where we're very actively engaged over the past 5 to 7 years, two of our people who were on an original master's program now have built up a self-sufficient community of 300,000 people. So in an area where 5 years ago everybody was starving, literally there was no food to eat, there are now 300,000 people who are well-fed, well-nourished, beautiful theatre, beautiful art, great poets, great dancers, and totally transformed. And now we're developing that model for the rest of Zimbabwe and hopefully for the rest of Africa. Because in Africa, if you don't have self-sufficiency, you have nothing. You don't start from global trade. You end with global trade. But first, the community needs to be self-sufficient. Okay, that's one, and there are theories. Everything we talk about is always theory and practice. I gave you a practice in Zimbabwe. The theory is actually German. There are two German economists, Ben Holt and Thompson, who've developed some very good theories in subsistence economics. It's all here. Integral economics. Okay, but that's not enough. Self-sufficient economics builds on your nature, your community, but it tends to be localized, like this is called Chilika, right? Or Marlborough, a local community. Once we go beyond the local community, the self-sufficiency isn't enough, so we talk about the next economic form, which is the developmental economy. This isn't the development economy, it's the developmental economy. What is that? Anybody been to Sri Lanka? Anybody know Sri Lanka? Good. You're not Sri Lankan, are you? No. Okay. You know Sabadaya? You know Sabadaya? Sabadaya, 50 years old, actually started as an NGO. It started by a physicist in a university who decided that his society was in big trouble, and started taking his students out to what's called shramadamas, which are work camps, to actually start rebuilding communities. And Sabadaya now is in 15,000 different villages, probably half of Sri Lanka. And in a sense, Sabadaya has co-created a polity and an economy in 15,000 villages, all based on Buddhism. Sri Lankan Buddhist culture. So if you haven't heard of Buddhist economics, go to Sri Lanka and you'll find Sabadaya, who we are very close to, who have developed what we call a developmental economy, which builds on your culture. You see, implicitly, if not explicitly, the economy as we know it today is built on two cultures. You can tell me who they are. Which are the two cultures which have co-constructed the economy as we know it and is now being imposed on all of us? Germany, German ordoliberalism, and Anglo-Saxon neoliberalism. And those two are redoubts of their particular cultures, which has made them in the past, I don't know in the present, certainly with the Anglo-Saxons, I don't know whether it's successful in the present, has made them successful in the past because they developed forms of economy which are a readout of who they are, their cultures. English liberalism and German orderism, order, right? Ordered markets. Okay, so those two cultures are doing relatively well. So that's the developmental economy is born out of particular societies. This is the one which I see a lot of in Slovenia. I've read the plans that Dalia showed me about your industrial policies, and there's a lot of what we call the knowledge-based social economy, not the socialist economy, but the social economy. Take Mondragon in Spain. Anybody come across the Mondragon cooperatives? Right. I believe there's something in this country which is called self-management. Strange subject. Some people say taboo subject. God knows why, but it is. Okay. It's part of your heritage, so let's throw away our heritage, right? Let's march on it. Capitalist world. We're all advertising. Okay. So the social economy, knowledge sharing. And then finally the living economy, and surprisingly there are significant examples of theories and practices in the USA of the nature-based living economy. So we are saying there are four economic forms. Now at this stage, if you had to say, which I'm sure you are saying or thinking, yes, but you know, which society actually follows all of that? What we found through our research is you won't find whole societies following that, but what you will find is what we call mesa enterprises. Intermediate-sized companies, organizations, like Mondragon in Spain, like Sabadaya in Sri Lanka, like Sechem in Egypt, which we'll hear much more about, which are these interface carpets in America, which are these fairly 2,000 people type organizations which have developed a whole different approach to economics. Okay. And I've now been discovering that there are one or two of them in Slovenia. Right, it would remind me of the name of the wood company.
Jelovica.
Jelovica. Jelovica. Jelovica is an example of such a mesa enterprise. It has a different kind of economic model. So we start to extrapolate it. Right? What does it mean? Each of these economic forms goes through a cycle of grounding, emerging, navigating, and affecting. Okay. Now, I'm going to take a bit of a leap from the economic form in general to what it means in the specific context in Slovenia, because I was asked to talk about sustainable tourism, and what I'll share with you is probably a little bit different from what you might imagine, or maybe not different, but you tell me. So it's putting some broad theory of integral economics into what does this mean specifically on the ground, and this is based on being 2 days in Slovenia. So apologies for inevitably getting it wrong. What do I know after being 2 days in Slovenia and reading a few good books? But of course, I was a very good host and catalyst, and that helps. That's your story, right? Based on somebody's been here for 2 days and was very presumptuous and saying, this is your story. You have a great folk tale about Slovenia as a fish carrying the world. Do you all know about it? Who knows this folk tale? I heard about it yesterday. Marco told me very well known, maybe not that well known. It's a Slovenian folk tale. And Slovenia is a fish and you're carrying the world. So I take that is, if I have a totally different perspective on tourism. For me, tourism is not most specifically about lots of people coming to see my country, enjoying themselves and earning so many euros. Tourism is about how we project ourselves to the world. And tourism, authentic tourism, sustainable tourism for me is in a sense how we project ourselves in a way that's authentic to who we are, which then gets magnified by people who come to the country and you say, you know, this country is Slovenia. It's not only beautiful mountains and lovely lake, they're the fish carrying the world. What do you mean? You're fishing? No. Small country, small fish. It carries the whole world. Ooh. Where did you see that? Well, let me tell you about this guy Marco. Okay. Now, the second thing I've discovered, so this is, if you like, the ground, you know, the grounding of this society, and of course it enables us to be small, but to think big, we're carrying the world. Not just a small fish. Pardon? It's also a burden. It's the other side of the same sword. Okay, so if you like, yeah, well that's fine, where do we go from here? Well, in a sense, we're a mix of 3 major civilizations. Right? The Germanic, the Romanic, and the Slavic. Aha! In our 4 worlds terms, it's kind of south, north, east. And as I said to you, we can't rest our case there because we're very influenced by those Anglo-Saxon Westerners, right? The America has some say in the matter. So, you know, we better bring them in, but that's not who we basically are. So we're a fusion of these different cultures. Oh, so where can I actually experience? Well, come to Marlborough and you're near the Austrian border and that Germanic influence. And then I go to the coast and the Italian influence and Romanic. But listen to my language. It's a Slav language. When I first heard on the plane Slovenian, I said, what a beautiful language. I might not understand a word, but it's music. It's music to my ears. So, you know, imagine these tourists actually coming and saying, aha, my in another book I read, you don't need to read a book because it's obvious, right? You are the crossroads of Europe. You have Crete and Iceland. In the middle is Slovenia. The east is Slavs, the west Germans, the middle is. So we're at the center. Where it all happens. Where can I experience that? Where can I go in Slovenia and experience this is where it all happens? This is the heart of Europe. Or else it's the solar plexus, right? You've heard of the solar plexus, this place. So imagine these tourists who are, wow. And then ultimately, hey, come and see, these guys are affecting a green integral economy. Where? Up on the mountain? Yeah. Let me show you. Oh, went the wrong way. We had a presentation on your kindred spirit, BC Lucklow. This is their research center. Ooh, this is amazing. This is like the fish with the world on his back, right? This is the world, all these different worlds, you know. Agro, tourism, seed production, biotechnology, kind of, this isn't geographical worlds, but it's worlds in terms of fields of endeavor and research and this thing. And there's this little fish, tiny little cottage. It's got the world in space. So if the tourists come to see this place and they say, oh, you're doing very interesting. Oh, I met the student, nice student. Oh, I see what you mean. Fish for the world in space. Aha, go and read the folktale. Here's a copy of the book. And really, you know, get to know better what we're talking about. What is it? You know, fish comes from nature. Fish out of water, fish in water, fish out of water. What's going on? Okay. Slav, German, Romanic, 3 valleys. Ah, the 3 valleys are not just 3 valleys. It's the 3 civilizations. You all know about Solkavsko? Solkavsko. How's it pronounced? Yeah, Solkavsko. The 3 valleys in unison, Romanic, Germanic, Slavic. Oh, I see what you mean. So it's not just something philosophical, but you can see it on the ground. 3 people, 3 valleys. My colleagues in Zimbabwe know how to talk to the mountains. And the mountains talk to them. And I met Marco yesterday, and Marco said to me, I talk to the mountains. There are 3 mountains and 3 valleys. Provide social, cultural, environmental sustainability. Oh, 3 values, 3 forms of sustainability. Building on by integrating cultural networks. Aha! This place, Slovenia, is quite a place, right? And, gee, I thought I was just coming for a few days of fun, swimming, doing a bit of fishing, and look what I'm learning. And I never realized I'd vaguely heard about this place with its beautiful mountains, but gee, much more than that. We operated the European crossroads. I'm back to my decades. You develop intercultural relations. Oh, I see. So that's what you mean by the crossroads. You actually work with the crossroads of your civilization. We promote our national heritage, which is actually part of that crossroad. We develop cooperation, teamwork, and we exchange our experiences across. Ah, so now I can see why all of these little parts of who you are, all because you're the crossroads civilization. You're the crossroads of. So if I, as a European, want to actually experience who I am as a whole, as a German or as a Frenchman, I have to come to Slovenia because you're at the crossroad. And you're the fish carrying me. Now I see it. So I'm not just coming to study agriculture. No. I'm not just a student or tourist in Slovenia. No. Oh, so is that what you mean by sustainable tourism? We had the privilege also to have the mayor of St. Rupert. Right, and here we see the green integral economy for real in this tiny community in St. Rupert, and it's all kind of there. So it's not just philosophy, culture, cooperation, people working together, fish in the sea, fishes on the water, but it's kind of happening on the ground. Fantastic. So you people are not just artists and philosophers, but you make things happen. So, of course, this could be mine, because you are becoming the green integral. That's kind of this writ large. I don't know whether we're going to be able to quickly set up the internet to show. We were going to show a video.
Should be.
Can we do this, Cynthia?
Okay, I will get some.
Pardon? Okay.
Okay.
We have to get into YouTube. Okay. While we're doing that, I'm now going out of Slovenia to. Does anybody know Shechem in Egypt? We'll now see and experience a model of a Mesa integral economy, actually born and bred in Egypt, but by Ibrahim Abulish, the founder, who spent a lot of his adult life in Austria. So it's what he calls a fusion of the Occident and Orient. If you go to YouTube and look up Shechem, S-E-K-E-M, and it's called Introduction to Shechem. There it is, Introduction to, no, not that one, this one. There we are, that's very quick, very efficient. So,
For each, he aims this
a second, Marumaru. I don't know how well you heard, but what Abolish was talking about at the end, the University for Sustainable Development has now been established. It opened its doors in October last year, and together with SECM, we are establishing there a social innovation center which lies at the heart of the university so that it can carry on its authentic purpose. So, next slide, livelihood board, Slovenia. I have to say, every time I've seen this video 100 times, it brings tears to my eyes. In the back of my mind, I have all these Shell Corporation and BP, where we have to reinvest our profits and our dividends. It's all possible. I want to create a lot of space for discussion, so I'm just going to show one more slide as a follow-up to this, so that I can finish mine by 11, so we can have good time for discussion, which is the most valuable part of such a session. This is, if you like, is the architecture of the second that you've just seen, which builds on the four worlds. We were the first people to actually conceptualize what second is about in that kind of general terms, and Abolish has been continually appreciative of the fact that we were able to recognize who they are. I'm going to finish up with this notion of an integral university, because what we're saying is this idea of the integral certainly applies to an economy, to an enterprise. We've written another book on the integral enterprise, and equally, this is our book which bears upon the work of universities, it equally applies to research and education. It's a kind of holographic model, right? It doesn't stop with one kind of enterprise. So what are we talking about if we developing an integral university, and this is what Heliopolis University is aiming to become. That's what we're working together with Helmi and his father. What we're saying, like there are four kinds of economies, if you like, there are four kinds of universities, and the integral university manages to combine them all. So the communiversity is the university which is profoundly rooted in its community, and therefore promotes what you might call community-based learning and development, key terms being context and community. We would reckon what we're doing with our partners in Zimbabwe, they were originally called business training and development, but now we would reckon they have become a university. They are working with local communities like Chinika, with the 300,000 people, with other such communities to develop the equivalent. And therefore, and this is in a sense music to our ears, primarily the university is not about educating individuals, it's about developing communities. And as an African, this is my mantra. For me anyway, at least the African part of me, university should absolutely not be primarily about educating individuals. Because individuals are kind of atomized, and they have their self-interest. And very often, and why I feel strongly about it, is they go to Harvard as I did, and then you can become part of their elite. Well, I hope I managed to somehow buck that trend. I didn't become part of the African elite who ignored my country. But that's what people do when they go to Harvard and London School of Economics as I did. So the community-based one is strongly rooted in the community, and we have the Zimbabwean example. The developmental university, which you might say is the most ambitious of all, and maybe that's what we actually see as a future for Maruburu, is engaged with the transformation of the society as a whole. Focus, societal learning, and raising consciousness. The closest example we have is Savodaya in Sri Lanka. Key terms, consciousness and capitalization. So, again, as I said before, we never just develop theory. We're always looking for practice which bears out the theory, and then you revise the theory. I'll come to the research university last. The University of Life is, in a sense, your evolved Anglo-Saxon model. It's the liberal arts university, where the main object is not just to develop your specialism, but to become, in a sense, an evolved person, character, learning for life, lifelong learning. Capacity building into the individual realization. So that's, funnily enough, more part of the traditional liberal arts Anglo-Saxon model than the modern, more commercialized model. We ourselves, with our partners Da Vinci Institute in South Africa, model ourselves on what we call an evolved or reframed research university, where we say that our main concern is education, research, and knowledge production for society as a whole. Not individuals gaining knowledge, that's part of the story, but knowledge production for the society as a whole. That's why Da Vinci Institute is partnered with Transform in Geneva. It also has an innovation institute. So if you like, it has an educational institute, it has an innovation institute, and it has Transform as a kind of cross-catalytic. We catalyze between Africa and the rest of the world in order to create an evolved research university. At the heart for us of research, I'm a victim of doing a typical doctoral program, which was no good to anybody, not even myself. But learned my lessons from that and said, well, the proper purpose of research is to generate innovation to benefit society. So in a sense, at the center of this kind of evolved research university is the kind of research that generates innovation that benefits society, that engages in knowledge production together with other constituents of society. It's the opposite of the ivory tower university. So in a sense, with our partners in South Africa, that's what we're closest to. With our partners in Zimbabwe, that's what we're closest to. And in a sense, these are the two in the wings. And if you get it right, as we hope Heliopolis University will do together with us, you become an integral university engaged in integral research and development, which in turn then links up with particular economics. End of this part of the story. Over to you.
Thank you very much for an inspiring lecture. So now please, questions, comments, and discussions. Who do you want to start?
May I?
Yeah, sure.
Very inspiring, thank you. Really hoping to get into the context of the universities you mentioned. I think this is, you came at the very right time. As we are in the middle of planning the university we want to build. And yeah, I think this perspective was missing, integral perspective. So thank you again.
Lovely to be in a place at the right time.
Yeah, you feel you fit in.
Could you tell us something more about the holistic approach and how to approach actually to build something like that? What would be the necessary steps for the Maribor University?
Yeah. I would say that I'm a great fan of what's called middle up down. I don't believe top down ever really works, but equally I don't think bottom up works either. So what is middle up down? I guess the middle up down, if you like, in a university is faculty administration. So where do you actually begin? To my mind, probably the beginning point is some kind of reframing where we are enabled no longer to see education as something which is to do with individuals. Because that to me is a major limiting factors in all the universities I've worked with around the world. It's about individuals coming on courses. So we switch our attention and say education is for communities. Obviously you don't do that overnight, right? You need a whole process, And usually you start with lead projects, right? You have a lead project where it's quite obvious that that process of learning, research and learning, same thing for research. We do not allow our researchers to work individually. It's forbidden, right? Okay, now it's easy to say, but it's difficult to do because we're so used to doing that, right? And we don't force fit either. We create what we call an innovation ecosystem. We create an organic architecture for people to co-evolve with each other. So both individual and research becomes ecosystemic rather than individual. And you start with demonstration projects. So two things. One is you decolonize our minds from focusing on individuals, which doesn't mean we don't focus on individuals, but we don't exclusively focus on individuals. And we bring about communal learning both within the institution and outside the institution. And as a rider to that, and I haven't put that one up, but one of my favorite pieces of work, based on people I worked with over 3 years, is two Japanese professors who wrote a book called The Knowledge Creating Company. Anybody come across it? To me, they are the major, anybody in the management field, they are the major management thinkers of our time, and I worked with them for 3 years. What they said, I haven't got the picture, but I hope we'll describe it to build on what I'm already saying. So if you like, micro-wires shift from individual to community. Institutionally, we no longer see the academic system, which is the departmental system, as in a sense the cutting edge of the university. In my mind, that stops things from happening. It has a place, right? It has a place, but the cutting edge is what they call the project lab. So these kind of interesting projects that we do some of the time, that some faculty engage in, actually becomes the cutting edge of the university. Okay, I can see some nodding good.
Yeah, very in line with what you
Okay. So you have the three elements, and I'm talking to convert it. You have the project layer as the cutting edge, you have the departmental system supporting that, and all of that is underpinned by a profound knowledge and value vision. So that's a simple answer to a complicated question.
This is exactly what we are doing.
Sure. Okay, fantastic.
And actually our vision statement, very short one, is about to become an innovation ecosystem.
Really?
Yes. And the second part is that we should enjoy in doing this.
Well, I didn't see that. Getting the next right line. Sorry, there are two people. Okay.
Yeah. I would like to challenge you with something what you said at the beginning. Actually, on the initiative of the rector, we started a global competition about what's the future of education worldwide. And in the final stage, 10 teams came so close to be the winners that I engaged experts for the system thinking worldwide under the Alexandrom Shiefferjem for selecting who are actually the winners. And my question is the following. How would you interpret that amazing solutions, really amazing solutions, are coming from Singapore, India, Philippines, Australia? And only with the distance, European countries and the States is following behind that. And this is the education aligned with nature, education aligned with the practical skills, working with the grounds, and integrating the system of the nature and innovations into the end of societies into the education. So really amazing things that we have not expected. For example, in Australia, they engaged the Australian Academy for the Science, and already 20 members work with the students on education. The question was, what will education look like in the 2022? And they need to come with a typical day, what will happen. So that's my first question. The second would be also aligned with this. We are noticing the trend from the students that they think that the current education is really not fitting to the needs of the 21st century. And what I'm surprised, they're going back to the basic skills. They feel they're spending the years at the universities learning about some things that they can get from the internet, but they can't do anything after 4 or 5 years. So from Morocco, from Brazil, even from Harvard, we received the submissions doing something with hands, either amazing when you see, when you do the analytics out, that this is actually a trend coming from the age of 18 further.
So, two questions. One is why Philippines, Singapore, Australia, and there was a fourth country.
Australia, Singapore, India, so
India.
it's everywhere east,
And the second is why are people going back to basics. I'll just give a view. It's bound to be wrong, but it's a view. Our overall experience of, if you like, southeast versus northwest, is the northwest is very good at analysis. We find this again and again, critical minds. And the south and the east, I'm generalizing, and to be fair, we operate more in the south than the east, is much more inclined towards transformation. We reckon you would never find a project like in Zimbabwe where two people have brought about circumstances where 300,000 people have enough food to eat in Great Britain. Just wouldn't happen. So part of what you described to me in these developing countries is much more of a transformative impulse. Right? It's not all good because much less of an analytical impulse. Right? So there's this urge to transform. Remember, I come from the south and I cannot understand my colleagues and my own son-in-law when I say to them, what are you doing to transform your society? What do you mean? I've got a good job. Or, I've got my studies. I can't believe you. But no, that's my influence of coming from the south where I have this passion to transform my society. And I think from the Philippines and India and these sorts of things, this is one of the factors which will affect it, which I believe is partly circumstantial. They see all the poverty around it. But it's partly something in the psyche. It's a different kind of psyche. So that's my sense for. I can't explain Australia unless it's Aboriginal. But Singapore, yeah.
Even based on that, I must say that the students from the government, they established the special government academic group, and they will redevelop education system in Singapore, which is anyhow leading worldwide, But they find out that it's not fitting to the needs of the 21st century.
I mean, you should talk to my partner, Alexandrom, because he ran a business for 7 years in Singapore, higher education leading worldwide. He would argue that Singapore is an incredibly sick society. Because Turkey denies its culture. If you live in Singapore, I wish he was here to tell you, you're like you're living in some anesthetized, totally disconnected, detached, deculturalized kind of society. So I'd be wary about too many lessons learning from Singapore, but nevertheless, I take the facts of what you said. So that's my only surmise about those countries in general, but as you say, Singapore is a kind of developed. The thing about the one people going back to basics, I would, in four-world terms, I would say what's basically happening is people are saying, enough of your kind of esoteric theories, right? I need to be able to do something, right? Do something with my life, and I want to sort of work with my hands on the ground. And so far, so good. That's an honest, authentic reaction. But I've got two big buts. I generally find students actually educationally very conservative. They might be politically very radical, we're going to change society, that's a good thing. But in terms of their educational vision, they're very conservative. That's my finding. Even the radical students. And the back to basics to me is pretty conservative. It may be useful, it may be practical, but it's not transformed. That's my reckoning. So two things are going on. Firstly, we need to bear in mind what we call the Eastern developmental. You won't transform your society just by going back to basics, right? You may generate self-sufficiency. The second thing, I've had a lot of conversations in the car with Daya about this. We've got the complete wrong angle on theory. The way we're taught theory, I'm sure not in Marburg. The way I was taught theory at Harvard, at London School of Economics, and in Zimbabwe is because I had to learn these theories and I had to read these books because I had to pass my exams. That is tragic, absolute tragedy. Theory should be to liberate the mind, to liberate the world. Theory is not generally been made that way. So what's the reaction? Enough of that theory. What the hell? What do I need that theory for? Let's get my hands dirty, let's do something, let's get myself a job. But without those theories, we'll have the stupid economic system that we have today. And we want our young students to work with us to create a totally new kind of economic system. So, I'm saying, so far so good, in our terms going south and going west. I've got enough of its arid north. But I'm saying our responsibility is to renew the north, to teach theory in a much more enlightened way, and to encourage our students to think society-wide.
Who will renew the north?
Pardon?
Who will renew the north?
Who will renew it? Us, if you're an academic.
Who is us?
Who are the academics?
I'm thinking because trap in another research that we done with the 80 Kearney for the Central and Eastern Europe, it was amazing because their perception of the Central and Eastern Europe is, for example, from Slovenia to Turkey, including Russia. And one of the questions to the students worldwide was, what is closer to Central Europe, West, including the United States, or East? And the results are like 55% against 45. That means that we are really trapped in the middle of everything. So who is then? And Asia is not prepared to save the North. It's very strong message from the youth that they will not try to save the North, neither the West.
You know, when you say you're trapped, let's have the other question after that. I think I know what you're saying, and Dario will know what I'm saying now, because on the first day I was here, and then even more the second day, I said, you know, I'm hearing about, you know, I use south, northwest, you can use totally different terms. I'm hearing about nature and community. I'm hearing about practical projects, getting things off the ground. I'm hearing about knowledge and so on. I'm not hearing anything about culture and spirituality. And somebody turned around and said, Ronnie, if I had to talk about that in this forum, nobody would listen. So no wonder we're trapped. Okay, now you wanted to raise.
I believe that we are not trapped, but the only question is, do we have professors with a passion, or did they lose this passion through the education system? And are they capable to create a society, to co-work with their students, and really change the society we live in? And if we don't have such professors, how can we challenge them to change? And if they are not prepared to change, what should we do? Because I have a feeling that we live in a society of dinosaurs. Companies are dinosaurs, universities are dinosaurs. How can we change the society that we become a society of gathers, free people, and people that really think and want to change the world and really live with a passion together with nature and the ecosystem. It's not just a theory, but something that it has to be now and here and in every one of us.
Does anybody want to address that vital question before I give my thoughts? Somebody else might want to say something. It's an obvious question. I'm the expert. But that's exactly what I was going to say. We have exactly that problem in Egypt. You know, I presented a romantic. SECM itself is absolutely extraordinary. The university after the first year is a very, very mixed bag. And one of the reasons is exactly the point that you're making. Everything is about the professors, right? What the professor says, and these professors are extremely conservative. And we've been saying to the abolitionists and saying, come on, we'll never get there if we rely on the professors. So we need to do two things. Firstly, pick those rare professors who are passionate about their society. That's the first thing. You need some mature role models, otherwise you'll get nowhere. So that's the first thing. Really identify, recognize those people who already are there. Then secondly, you develop your young faculty. Young people are more flexible. But of course you'll only do that if you don't say the professors are the experts, they know everything, right? Then you've got a problem. They know some things. So, you know, that's a very simple answer. But two things, recognize those few who are like that, and then develop younger, more flexible people who can really embrace the vision and so on.
But professors, they are also challenged with, they have to get some points, they have to write articles, and the whole system, the educational system, is not letting them to be what they are. And probably they decided to go that they went because they had a passion at the beginning. So how to change the system they have to work in, like, in history and so on.
I would strongly encourage, I say we now because connecting, I would strongly encourage that we really stand on the shoulders of this idea of a Mode 2 university. I mean, it's a fairly clinical term, Mode 2. But having seen how it works in South Africa with our partners, and having read all of Novotny's ideas, I've met her personally, it's a totally different concept of university. You're rewarded for totally different things. You're rewarded for creating knowledge that's of value to your society. And then you build the whole thing from there. So yes, you need that kind of different institutional infrastructure, which I'm sure you're working on at the same time. Very, very important question.
How can you do this, let's say, in the current Slovenian context? In economics, only in Maribor, now people can graduate from 8 schools. Only one of them has professional professors. The rest are practitioners who have no time to do research and who are ordered by their deans. 80% of students may not fail. How can you make any progress and survive at the same time in such conditions? And the law is being abused. The law says school must be qualified, and they have qualified people on paper, but not employed.
Yes.
All private universities where I have been teaching had at least 70% of their programs covered by fully employed people, and fully professional and fully qualified.
Maybe I should ask directly. You want to respond to that question?
Well, the answer is actually very simple. It's the evolution and the selection, as in nature. The changed, those who already have transformed, then give the model and direct the further development. Of course, they have to be like, their values have to be recognized, and what they do and achieve has to be recognized by the rest, otherwise no one will follow. So it is a very evolutionary approach that I think will only work in this transformational process, nothing else. So, but okay, this is theory. In practice, yes, we're trying to do this every day. We nod it to each other with our vice rector all the time. Yes, this is what we're doing. Yes, this is where we are going. This is how we want to change. And there is another very important issue, because we might get depressed out of it. We can only change things that we are able to change, and those that we are not responsible for, we cannot change. We shouldn't really be impressive about those. So do what you can.
Well, in your terms, it's much to do.
Yes,
Because the Rectors' Conference works on the law with most influence.
yeah. Therefore, we are also introducing changes in the law.
Hopefully.
Yes, we do. We are doing this. We have actually the guidelines for doing this, and we are discussing this with the minister and so on. So we do many things in parallel, and of course, from the bottom to the top, and from the top to the bottom, and from the mid into both directions, all 3 approaches at the same time. therefore we introduced that system of levers that should, activate a kind of synergetic effect of our actions. Because just single actions won't work. It has to be a very strongly somehow, we have to strengthen these individual forces by combining them in the right way. Will we succeed? What Beckett wrote was a perfect answer. Ever tried, ever failed, and so on. Failed bad. Try again, failed bad.
I have one idea actually. Usually the university and professors, they're all about education, and they're educating people, they get their degrees and they are unemployed. That's great mission. Maybe professors, universities should change their mission. Maybe they should start to think how their students, how they are going to help students that they get employed, how they will build sustainable companies, not just at university, but this should be the goal actually, to combine diverse knowledges, from diverse universities, and to build sustainable companies, not in university, but with students for the community and better the community.
I fully agree. I fully agree. It's just that you can't set your goals too far away, because then no one will believe they're achievable. So we have, yes, we have a very similar approach, because this is we want to build this responsibility of each of us, that it's not just telling the story to a class and then that's my responsibility. No, my responsibility is that the students get the right knowledge they can use in their lives and with which they can help and contribute to the community. But
it's not about knowledge, it's about building a community inside and with the community.
Of course, but for this you need knowledge.
Yes.
I don't need, and yes, useful knowledge, if there is any knowledge that's not.
I strongly believe this is possible.
Yeah, so do I. Just for
but
that,
not in future.
From that goal, you have to define some goals that are closer to our mindsets. And, yeah, you can achieve this. Yeah, you can achieve this. And when we're there, okay. So we have to do it gradually. Otherwise, people would say, oh, that's science fiction.
I believe we don't have time, and the future is not in the future, but the future is now.
Yeah, but time is
just one thought, because maybe just maybe in between what the two of you are saying. And I have to say one thing we academics, I say we here, are not very good at, is when we see people are not quite agreeing with each other, we need kind of mediating processes to find the space in between. But we don't always do that. The one thing about being more employable or more relevant education, those kinds of things, which is of course very good in one sense, but only in one sense. A colleague, I didn't know him because he died in 1924, but he's like a colleague, he's a kindred spirit, an Englishman by the name of Clifford Douglas. He wrote a book in 1922 called Economic Democracy, and he was an accountant and engineer. Now, this is what he said, because I think he's right. He said, with modern technology, this was 1922, if all the people in the world worked for 1 day a week, we'd have enough for all of us to have food and shelter and everything we need. And the rest of the 4 or 5 days, you just enjoy yourself. We've got this completely topsy-turvy economy, where, we don't have enough work, and people are unemployed, and we have to work harder, and we have to try harder, and we need to be more skilled. In one sense, it's total nonsense. It's the whole economy is totally topsy-turvy. So while at the same time we want more relevant education, we want our research community to invent a whole different form of economy where we only have to work 1 day a week. Insane.
in behalf of the organizers of the entire program, I would like to thank you very much, the University of Maribor, Natalia Kosturnik, the City of Maribor, who enabled this incredible event today, a high-level event, I would say, and a very promising event. Maybe to tell you only a few words about the idea behind this program. I am at a very low position at the moment at the Ministry of Agriculture and the Environment, and I managed to persuade the top of our top managers of our ministers to let me organize this visit, and it was very difficult, but miracles do happen. This is my message. And we have so many activities going on that we would like to become partners with you, or we have stake partners in this program. If you look at the invitation, you will find partners who are already doing something which is to a certain extent integral. We are working also with several other stakeholders, and it's possible if we team up really to propose something like program of measures for an exit strategy. I have explicit mandate from our State Secretary Andrea to think about that and to propose it, including the budget items which are necessary. I don't say, I cannot promise that it will be accepted, but on May 29th, the delegation from the European Commission is coming to Slovenia, and my hope is that we could have arguments for a different approach for our crisis, to replace this austerity pressure that is coming from the European Commission, European Union, and from several other institutions. We are planning to organize in September international conference inviting Abonaj from Ariadne from Abonaj from second Ariadne from Savonia. We'd like to invite top manager from Mondragon. I'm trying to persuade also our stakeholders to start to cooperate with the Triodos Bank in Netherlands. That means to start work in the direction of sustainable banking, how to bring them in Slovenia, and persuade them to invest in our sustainable project, because they are investing worldwide in a sustainable project. And maybe if we manage to create a program of measures in a few months' time, that will serve as an exit strategy, also program for the period 2014-2020, programming period for EU funds, as you know. Then we could also start with international project, global project, inviting institutions that were mentioned, universities, think tanks, research centers that would like to monitor what we are doing. And this would really bring us on the front leaders, the sort of demonstration, pilot country for integral technology.
Thank you very much, all of you, to come to the first part of this excellent event, as stated before. Now, we would like to invite you to join us in the premises below, in resumed spaces, of course. So just please follow our colleagues here who will guide you downstairs for some refreshments and further discussions. Thank you very much.
Vediamo da lì poi vedere cosa sono le funzioni, noi facciamo capire.